Greetings and welcome back to Guitar Bear Camp. This is the blues lessons. So we're looking at the theory within blues as having a solid foundation where you won't feel limited in the future by your knowledge of the blues. So you can have a great connection with all sorts of blues music, such as country blues, rock blues, jazz blues, and this will, give you, a good foundation into, blues music as a rhythm guitarist, but also a lead guitarist who wants to play melodies. So we are on our second part of this lesson, and we're on the third most common chord for blues. The first most common chord we spoke about was dominant 7, and then the second most common is dominant 9. We also spoke about the five most relevant or common blues scales, and the third most common chord we will say now, which is the dominant 13. So if a musician wants an even richer, more sophisticated, smoother and jazzier sound, they will often use dominant 13. For example, C13, F13, G13. A dominant 13th chord has a warm, rich, smooth and sophisticated sound that retains the blues tension of a dominant 7th while adding a distinctly jazzy soulful color by adding an additional note, which is the 13th. If you become fluent with the first 5 scales that we spoke about, minor pentatonic, blues scale, major blues scale, major pentatonic, and mixolydian, if you become fluent with those, which I will show you practically speaking in a lesson very soon. But if you are becoming fluent in that over, if we're looking into, the key of C, so we're looking into, chords such as C7, F7, G7, C9, F9, G9, and C13, F13, and G13, you will have an extremely strong blues vocabulary before moving into more jazz-oriented sounds. Now, obviously, you have to learn things about like phrasing, and you might even want to learn some licks so you can really enjoy that blues sound that you might associate with like musicians, for example, like BB King. If you like learn how to practically apply this theory, then you will know how to do so much given so little time that you really need actually from demonstrating your expertise as a guitarist. So let's just press on for now. So you're within kind of like the theory here, but the most common 12-bar blues progressions, we spoke about what 12-bar blues is in our first part, in our first video. But another way of naming progressions as harmonizations is as follows. So if we are talking about a traditional 12-bar blues and ranking the harmonic flavor or from the most common to progressively richer, we can order them as follows. So the most common like 12-bar blues harmonization is sticking with that first that most common dominant chord, which is the dominant 7. So in terms of progression, relying on that chord, you would have C7, F7, and G7. As I showed you within that backing track, I'll show you it now. I'll show you it again. So this is the backing track. So C7, F7, G7 as we have. Okay. So this is the classic blues standard and by far the most common. This is probably the best way to like, if you want to listen to what blues music sounds like, this is such a great way to to get an initial impression or a first impression. Um, and so we'll look at another one. So in terms of another harmonization, we've got C9, F9, and G9. So probably the most common upgrade to the dominant 7. So it keeps the classic sound but adds warmth and richness from adding that ninth note. Okay, so and then the third most common is C13, F9, and G13. So a very common jazz blues and modern blues choice. The first and fifth chords, so like the C13 and the G13, become smoother and fuller. Um, okay, so let's not try to worry and elaborate too much on the reasoning or the explanation there. It's just once you listen to it, that's what matters. And if you want to get more deeper into the theory as to, how things are tense and how things resolve, how the music is tense and how music resolves, then by all means, you can do your own research into that. But as a blues guitarist who wants to get just a firm grasp on the foundational theory, we can just acknowledge this description here for this kind of harmonization. And the fourth is C9, F13, G13, which is another popular modern blues variation with a richer fourth chord. So, because it's the F13, it's the 13th that makes it more rich. And the fifth, is C13, F13, G13, a consistently lush sound used in jazz blues and sophisticated blues arrangements. The sixth is C7, F9, G13, which is a gradual increase in color as the progression moves toward the fifth chord. Okay, the fifth chord is the G13. And we'll just have a last final one here. So the seventh harmonization or progression that we're looking at here is C9, F7, G13. So that's the seventh most common, generally speaking. It's more statistically speaking, but yeah. So it makes it a more traditional sound. But the main idea here is that the first two chord progressions are the core blues vocabulary, and after that, players begin mixing ninths and 13ths chords to add color, and there isn't a single universally dominant combination here. Once you get beyond all seventh or all ninths, several mixed extension progressions are widely used rather than one clear standard. So, you can think of it as kind of like Subway, where you might have your common choice of bread, meat filling, cheese, and vegetables. But once you get more into it, you might want to get a bit more experimental and add or substitute different, elements or components, and really see what kind of overall flavor you would get. So I think a blues sandwich looks like to me it's better than a ham sandwich. Of course, it's got something really good to it a lot of the time. It's got like mustard. It's got a bit of cheese, like to me parmesan maybe, and it's got I don't know, onions and lettuce. And even maybe it's not a ham sandwich, maybe it's a chicken sandwich, and the chicken's kind of like seasoned or marinated, and that could be like a mixolydian scale there. That chicken, that marinated chicken, and so or the 13th, it could be a C13th chord, and that could be like a sauce. That could be an extra spiciness from the sauce or something. So that's kind of how I would describe choosing, a chord progression or harmonization. And also we can talk more about, choosing or selecting different scales depending on what kind of chord progression that is used. But generally speaking, the most relevant ones is the ones that I mentioned, which is the first five from the C minor pentatonic to the C mixolydian. Okay, so let's just continue for now and just really look at what we mentioned, which is chord tone. So resolving to chord tone. So one of the things that makes blues so expressive is that you can resolve to many different notes. It's not just the root note that you can, resolve to. Like, if you're playing in C, in the key of C, and you're playing like over a C7 chord or any kind of chord that you might feel like, okay, it sounds good or it sounds appropriate. It sounds like you're at peace, at peace when you're, playing the note C. But the great thing about blues is that you can play on other notes. So I will show you that now. So this is something that a lot of guitarists actually not really that aware of. So this is something that you can really sink your teeth into, actually, this theory here. So the strongest resolutions are usually to chord tones. So you would have within context to the blues, you would have like the root, the third, the fifth, and the flat seventh. Okay, um, and so for example, over a C7, resolving, which is a chord, C7. So you resolve to like C, because obviously that C is the root, which sounds very final and stable, as we mentioned, and then resolving to E, which is the third, which strongly defines the major quality of the chord, okay? And then you might resolve to the perfect fifth as well, so the G, which sounds stable but a little bit more open. And then you might resolve to B flat, which is the seventh, which gives a classic dominant blues sound, okay? So you can also, and again, this is when thinking about, either as a rhythm guitarist when you're like arpeggiating these notes and you want to transition to other notes, which we'll talk about later. But, as a lead guitarist, you want to think about like what kind of notes you're playing exactly over chords. So this is quite pertinent. It's quite relevant here. You can also resolve to extensions if the rhythm section is playing them. So if you're extending your chord to a C9, a C9 chord, which is basically a C7 chord, but you also have the D note, which is the ninth. That's great. But you can also have A, which is the 13th, which is played over a C13th chord. Okay, and these sound more colorful, but still feel like a resolution because they belong to the chord. So that's quite important there. I'll repeat that. These sound more colorful, but still feel like a resolution because they belong to the chord. Okay. Many great blues players actually end phrases when they phrase like da 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 da, and then might like end that phrase, that melody, that bit of melody. Let's just call it a bit. That bit of melody. You know, they might actually end it on the third or the flat seventh rather than the root. And that's what a lot of blues players play. I mean, and that gives the solo a more conversational quality and avoids sounding too predictable. And it also sounds like this is my subjective supposition here. I suppose that a blues guitarist, lead guitarist, sounds like they are aligned. They are aligning or synchronizing themselves with the rhythm by leading with or ending with resolved notes that are like the third or the fifth. I mean not the fifth, the seventh. And it sounds like it's been part of the rhythm because those notes are chord tones within the rhythm section, so the chords that's being played. Okay, so that's all I would say for now. We're gonna have to make a third part to continue this guitar bear camp for blues theory. But I hope you've understood and enjoyed what's been mentioned. And if you're confused with anything, I will try to clarify in the next session. or you can just drop a comment and I will answer. Thank you.